record on this computer. Okay, it's recording. Cool. Okay.
All right. So we
Hi.
begin?
Yep. Hi, Carl. Great to hear from you again, and I'm glad you could join us. And thanks for taking the time. Maybe we can start off by you telling a bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first, Mark, it's nice to meet you. Courtney, nice to see you, and thanks for your patience with me and for the emails. Um, and I'm honored to be here because my number one mission in life, besides being a good family member, grandpa, father, and all that, is to help people. And over the past few years, I've been able to travel a lot and work with people with many different types of movement disorders and other, challenges. But oh, thank you. Okay, you don't want to see my face. I'm really tired. Just kidding. In fact, I got in about midnight last night from 6 days in Oaxaca, Mexico, teaching for a new Parkinson's association there. We had people with mostly with Parkinson's, but some with dystonia, one with ataxia, and some other challenges. But I'm based in Syracuse, New York. I live in a little town called Baldwinsville. It's a very beautiful, tiny little town, just a few thousand people. And, the really short version of my story and how I got to be here doing this now is that I'm 60 years old. So when I was about 16 and got my driver's license, I was, trust me, I'm not bragging. I'm a good drummer. I'm not great, but I'm very good and very versatile. And decided I wanted to go into music, so I went into it and I stayed in that for 35 years as a career. But at about the age of 48, so it's 12 years ago, this should answer a lot of these questions, this little 2-minute story. At about the age of 48, I weighed upwards of 300 pounds, or let's say 100 and how many kilos would that be? I was very overweight, very obese, pre-diabetic, almost, close to having COPD, although I was never a smoker. But as a drummer and a musician, I played in a lot of smoky bars until they banned the smoke. And my doctor gave me a health scare in a nice, stern way, because he's a friend. He said, dude, you got to change your life. And I knew what I needed to do. He helped me. I called a trainer, which leads me into the story about changing careers. So I kept playing music for a little while, but it's been almost 8 years since I played even part-time. I haven't done anything in public in 8 years. And I have no desire to do that at this point. However, during a 6-month process where I lost... Well, I was just looking at this the other day. I think I was close to 50 pounds in 6 months. My trainer really inspired me and helped me a lot. He's also a dietitian. So I was able to clean up my eating, start moving, doing things, build muscle, redistribute the weight in my body, get rid of a lot of weight, be stronger, move better, and more than anything, be healthier, which led to me feeling happier. So, of course, my family was happier too when I felt better and wasn't on the risk of actually almost dying. But during this about 6 months, I'm like, I don't want to play the drums for a living anymore. This is not, I was never really wanting to do it anyways, but I didn't think I could do anything else. So I decided to look into various training certifications. And a really good friend of mine, who's also a musician, who owns an incredible human movement institute, is Dr. Brent Bush. He's based in Manhattan. He's taught me more than anyone about movement and biomechanics. And so he said, get the National Academy of Sports Medicine trainer certification or don't do it, because he thought it was the best one. I have to say, I think it's a really good one. There are many out there that are good, but it's probably in the top 3 or 4 that I know of. And so I did it. I studied for 6 months. So now this is a year later after the health scare, and now I'm down to 220 pounds instead of 300 pounds almost. And I'm like, I'm going to do this because I want to help people feel as good as I do, hopefully. And so let's see. I actually don't really like to talk about me that much, but I don't mind this story because it does inspire people sometimes. There's a lot of hope for a lot of people, and I don't have a movement disorder, but I have some other issues, and I'm beating them. I will beat them with all the fight I have in me still. Uh, so after 2 years of training people, I decided that it's okay, but I'm not really into the weight loss thing so much as I am. I want to understand how to improve health, nutrition, absorption of good food. So I went back to school at Syracuse University. Let's see, I was 51 at the time, so it's 9 years ago, to do the nutrition degree nutrition program. I thought, well, I can add this to this, and I'll have a complete package, kind of like my trainer does. It was there in the first semester of school that I met one of my professors, Jerry Evensky, who was a great, great friend. I still work with him. He found out I worked in the gym. I'm not actually sure how that happened, but he did. I worked at the gym at the university. And he said, will you please train me? Like, okay. Little did he know, well, he does now. At the time, he had no idea. I did not know anything about Parkinson's because he's in great shape physically. He doesn't have any excess body fat. I'm like, what am I going to do? Well, I found a pathway. My son happened to be, okay, now I brag for a minute. My son is an MD, PhD, and somebody I look up to as a mentor. And he was doing his PhD at Hershey Penn State College of Medicine. And it just so happened to be that he finished 2 years of med school, then did the PhD, which has to do with Parkinson's. Not movement so much, but Parkinson's. And then he finished med school, and now he's finishing, almost done with residency next month in Atlanta. Then he moves here. Yay. So he's going to be working at a hospital here in the emergency room. So he led me down a pathway to meeting all kinds of people who, like neurologists, who favor movement, who favor exercise, who realize the benefits of elevating the heart rate and working on multitask training and neuroplasticity and training the brain, right? Which we'll talk about in detail soon. And that started the journey, So, I mean, I started working for a podiatrist out of New York City to teach for her barefoot training specialist program. Dr. Emily Splickle is amazing. I took every course she had. Here's a question. I started a Mindset for Success YouTube channel, which it's still there, but really that's not so much important. Is if you just go to Karl with a K, Sterling.net, like Sterling Silver, Karl, Karl, Sterling.net. I believe it'll lead to the Extraordinary Experts playlist on YouTube, which has all the mindset stuff in it I've got to change my bio. And I started interviewing 8 years ago. I interviewed Emily as one of my first, and Dr. Brent Brookbush, who I also taught with for 3 years and traveled a lot with both of them, or for both of them, around the Europe and the United States, Canada. And during that time, I had worked very, very hard in doing these interviews, rather self-indulgent, quite honestly. I just wanted to get in front of doctors and experts who could teach me stuff. So, and then they would agree, they're not going to agree to go to coffee with me, but they would agree almost every time to do an interview so I can share with the world. It was for me first, not because I'm so special, but I wanted to help people. So if I know more, I can do a better job.
I just turned on live transcript because somebody couldn't hear you. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. This should be cranked up all the way, this preamp. Can you hear me okay, everybody? Sort of, I hope.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So, through these 150-something interviews now that's on karlsterling.net. Actually, you know what? See, I had COVID. I still forget stuff sometimes. So I think if you just go to extraordinaryexperts.com, I think that's it. You should be able to go right to that list. So you'll see all these people. Dr. Alfonso Fasano from Toronto Western. Dr. Wendy Suzuki from New York University. Dr. Shumei Wong from Hershey Penn State. Dr. John Rady, who has become a friend and wrote many, many best-selling books, but he's a Harvard Medical School professor. He wrote, this book is an epic book called Go Wild. He wrote Spark. He wrote a lot of good stuff, great stuff. And you know what? It's an ongoing journey. Like sometimes I don't even feel like I know anything, but I know I do. But I always want to learn more. So if I can give advice, I would say learn as much as you possibly can and take advantage of how you're able to maximize your ability to experience neuroplasticity, which we'll get into detail on in a couple of minutes. So, the National Academy of Sports Medicine is, I am a master trainer through them, and really all that really means, I don't like say much about that because I don't want to come across like I'm a big shot, because I'm not. I'm just a guy. But it does mean that I'm very knowledgeable of their program and how they look at human movement and asymmetrical movement patterns and movement compensation patterns and all that. So if you have any questions on that, I think the best way to reach me is I'll type it in the chat box. The best email for me is just Karl at neuromotortraining.com. Let's see if I typed it right, even with jet lag. Whoa. So there it is. Please, anytime, reach out. I'm here to help people. So let's just the last thing here before I show some slides. This is just part of the story. Is during the interview process is when Emily hired me, because she said, you'd be good, just come work for me. And so I did. It was beautiful. I traveled a lot for her, traveled a lot with Brent. And then during this, people were saying, you got to start a Parkinson's program, because we see your postings and like, we don't see a lot like this out there, and yours seem to be pretty comprehensive. So I did. And I wrote the course 6 years ago, and I started teaching it 6 years ago, I think next month. And I've been lucky, man. I got back at midnight last night from Oaxaca, Mexico. This is my 9th trip to Mexico in 3 years. So I guess I did 8 in the first 2 years, because I haven't been there in over a year. 30 plus countries I've been able to visit and help people. And, one thing I find in common everywhere we go is we're all humans. And there are a lot of people who are facing many, many challenges. So what I will share with you today, I just want to do, it's not necessarily like a formal disclaimer, but I do want to share that whatever I share with you today, know that this is not intended to replace your doctor, your neurologist, your medications. It's meant to complement all of those. When we all work together, when we take all these things and put them together, we will realize, more than likely, an improved quality of life and maybe even slow disease progression and things like that. So in the questions, I noticed that I have a, you know what? Let's do the screen right now.
Sure.
I'm done talking about me. Where is it? Let me know if you can see this. Do you see? I'm not so good at this. Just 1 second. I'm sorry. Okay. Here we go. Do you see neuromotor training? You got it?
I can see it. Maybe people can type in the chat whether they can see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you don't mind, maybe keep an eye on that chat for me, Mark.
Sure.
Because I'm in a low function of multitasking today. It's only 1 hour time difference. It was all day travel, though. I'm not complaining. I'm grateful, but I'm very tired. But I feel great. I feel really, really good. I've been so much looking forward to this. I think when I look through the rest of this, all of the answers and the questions that you gave me are going to come out during this, what I believe will be a relatively short presentation. Okay. I decided, I couldn't even believe it. Like, I made up this word, so I thought, called neuropsychomotor training. Like, a neuropsychomotor, man, that sounds like I'm a really smart guy. It's not about that. But you know what? It's already a thing, and it applies to infants as they developed. I have 1 week. Let's see. Today's Friday. 8-day-old granddaughter. In Atlanta, I have a 5.5-month-old granddaughter here. And they are going through this neuropsychomotor part of their life, like the most intense. If you ever look up neuropsychomotor, you're going to see infants and toddlers. But anyways, I thought because of the neuro and the brain, nervous system, brain, and movement being neuropsychomotor, the rehabilitation is something that can help all people. All right, so I really try to integrate fitness and cognition, memory with movement. Really want to try to train the whole body, including the brain and the nervous systems, because they're all connected. I already said this. We don't want to replace stuff. We want to work with others, work with the neurology community, work with the medical community. And of course, I put safety because anything we do, especially if we're at an increased risk of falling, we want to have people do what they can and challenge them, but not do things they absolutely can't do unless, you're really right there ready to catch them or something. The whole intention of the program is because it comes down to this. The double arrow represents the lack that I see or saw and still see to a degree of education and research and in the world. Now, it depends upon where I go. I've been to some places that are very, very knowledgeable. So if you look over on the left where you have the current level of medical, neurological, physical therapy education, well, sometimes it's a lot. I've been to places where it's a lot. I've also been to places like this past 5 days, Sunday through, whenever I was there this week, of extreme lack of knowledge. Nobody's ever had anything like what I went there and taught this week. And so what we did is we took that double arrow there and we just fill that with techniques, strategies that can help the person. So now you go to the right and hopefully start to fill that gap and that bridge or gap, fill the void to help improve functional life for the patient, whether it's Parkinson's or anything else, or even like my mom. She doesn't have a movement disorder, but when she broke her ankle 3 years ago and didn't tell anyone and then needed surgery and rods and, well, guess what? She started doing what I recommended. Family's always the last one, right? And I love my family. But this is for everyone too. It's physios, caregivers, the person with a movement disorder, if they have one. It's for anyone because we can all help each other. All right, so when we look at Parkinson's, we can say this, I believe, comments I've received all over the world and here in the email from that I got this week, is that ataxia could be referred to as a full-body multifunction experience. It's very complicated, and it affects everyone uniquely differently. So hopefully in this education, we learn how to live a full and active life to the best of our ability, hopefully slow disease progression, reduce fall risk, improve movement, memory, cognition, quality of life for everybody. Because when the person with the movement disorder realizes, let's say, any improvements in these areas, then guess who else does? Caregiver, family members, maybe friends, co-workers. And so if anyone is also, this is another thing too, it's all in the research everywhere. There's a book I'm looking for. I think I left it downstairs, but I'll just tell you about it in a while. If we're predisposed to any type of disease, like in my family, Alzheimer's is the thing, then if we do these things, there's a good chance we might delay the onset of experiencing the disease through genetic mutation or whatever. All right, so for people with Parkinson's, and I know there's a risk here with all neurological and all movement disorders, is we're really concerned about falls, injury from falls. Now, I can only speak for the Parkinson's community, knowing that I don't know the stats in ataxia. And it seems like stats change sometimes. So I know in the Parkinson's community, for example, the number one cause of mortality, it's not the fall, it's the complications from a fall. Okay, so we want to avoid falling. Now, as Dr. John Rady says, which you'll see if you go to extraordinaryexperts.com, I'm pretty sure that's, I should know, right? I think that is the website address. Look for John Rady, Exercising the Brain, it might be called. He will talk about, in the very beginning, he just talks about movement lights up the brain. Walking, just moving. But also, as humans, our lifestyles have changed. They've changed in the past 20 years, 30, 50, 100, 200 from what it was before there were cars, before there was this fancy technology. Of course, I love technology, right? But instead of going to the bank, I can just do everything on my phone. Hey, how convenient. But we have to remember that we were designed to move. Humans are designed to move. Here's a fun fact. 11,000 years ago, your average human went 14 miles a day on foot for whatever. That's a lot of miles. Now, you're maybe kilometers in Canada. What's that? Maybe 20 kilometers? Something like that. That's a lot of movement. That's more than most of us do on a very, very good day. And that would include me.
Well,
All right.
sorry to interrupt you, Karl, but that's a funny point you bring up because I don't know how it is in the US, but over here they pretty much recommend as long as you get 10 to 15,000 steps in a day, you're good.
You know what? I would agree. That's probably a good number because you're going a few miles that way total. Excuse me. So yeah, I mean, we don't have to go and move the way we used to get our food and our water and our. We don't have to. You know, I can order pizza and stuff and whatever on my app and just lay on my couch until they knock at the door. And that's all cool as long as we remember to move. So movement lights up the brain. It creates electrical chemistry, literal, like synaptic firing patterns. And it's, first of all, very good for brain health to move. Now, if we look at what John Rady also says, I really just took this right from him and he knows it. I credit John Rady for this. The ultimate way, it's 4 out of 5 of these things. The ultimate way, to maximize brain activity is to, up in the upper right corner, move. Do movement. Do stuff you like to do, because you're not going to do stuff you don't. I don't do anything I don't like to do, usually. Once in a while I do, just to challenge myself. I love to ride my bicycle. I love to run, but I'm having some problems with my hips, so I walk fast. I'll walk fast after this to the mechanic shop to go get my car. Anyways, move. Do it in a playful manner. So upper left is play. We'll talk about that in 1 minute. And if you can, do it outdoors. There's so many benefits to outdoors for the brain. And I could go way into detail for hours just about the benefits of natural light to your brain. Not looking out the window to the beautiful day. It's a beautiful day here. Going outside and being in the natural light. Being outside, being near trees, being on grass, being on dirt. And that's good for the immune system. It's good for jet lag. Trust me, I know. To ground yourself, like the whole thing, you've probably heard of grounding. Barefoot is the 4th out of the 5. Music comes in a minute. Barefoot. We'll go over barefoot in a minute, but just know that even just a few minutes of barefoot every day, preferably outdoors, if it's not a meter of snow in your yard or 2 feet of snow or something. All right, so, and then music is another thing. Now, maybe you can have music outside, but maybe the music outside is not music as we generally describe it. Maybe it's what I feel is I have all kinds of birds. I'm very lucky. I live on a river. I have no neighbors. I'm on a dirt road in the woods. And because I don't like having neighbors, but I like people. But it's, we have bald eagles. We have hawks, herons, swans, all kinds. I have probably a dozen bird houses in my yard because I love birds. That's the music. I get to hear the sounds of nature, the sound of the wind.
Or if you live by the ocean, that might be music too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The sound of the waves is music coming for me, to my ears personally. So, you also music in how we think of music usually. That's another thing. So, doing all these things at the same time is going to absolutely maximize brain electrical firing patterns. Well, almost, not quite, almost maximize. And that alone is so healthy to do. Let's talk more about it. Let's talk about the nervous system. We have the central nervous system, the peripheral. Okay, I'm not going to go into detail about this because although I love science and details, I want to spare you from how I talk about it because you might end up leaving the meeting. We know that these systems link the brain with the body and the body with all of its organs. We also have this thing called, I'll just go here, interoception. This is your awareness of how you feel within the confines of your own skin, okay? Your awareness of yourself. You could even, we won't do it now, you can do it on your own. Maybe just at some point later, close your eyes, be in a quiet place, and see if you can not feel your pulse like this, but feel your pulse. And then see if you're accurate by actually feeling it and looking at a watch for maybe the same amount of seconds and see if you're on. Like, were you close? Did you have good awareness of your actual pulse? I'm only about 70% on this. I feel like my pulse is one thing, but I'm usually off. So I'm working on my body awareness. Then we also have our awareness of what's happening in the outside world. We need to know of this so that we are safe. If we're hiking in the woods and there's a lion out there and that lion is hungry, we might be his next meal or her next meal. You need to know that so that you don't get eaten, right? I mean, I know I'm being ridiculous maybe, but I'm not also. We want to be safe. We look both ways before we cross the road. Make sure we understand what's out there. Be in touch with ourselves and what's happening outside of our bodies. So the nervous system and the brain's job is to take the inner world and match it to the demands of the outside world. If this doesn't make sense yet, I promise it will soon. We're going to sharpen the nervous system. So we have this goal. We want to sharpen the firing rate, speed of our brain, which the nervous system is basically part of, and to match demands of the outside world as needed. For example, I got a great example from yesterday. Oh my gosh. So interoception. The point of most interoception is probably when you fall asleep, because you're purely in relation to yourself then. A dream could take you out of it slightly for a while. But if you're truly asleep, like me, when I'm sleeping, I sleep extremely well. I'm very lucky. I know the thunderstorms, there was an accident, near a hotel and fire trucks. I didn't hear any of it, So I was very much related to myself, purely sleep, just me, no exterior. I didn't know what's going on in the outside world. Yesterday, I'm at the Atlanta airport, the last layover. And my phone said one time and my watch said another. So I'm sorry. So I had a plane. I wanted to get home last night. And all of a sudden I realized my watch is an hour behind schedule. It didn't reset. It's connected with my phone. And I had like 15 minutes to get to the gate, or 18 minutes or something. I'm like, oh no. So I'm like, wait. Literally, I see the gate. I'm running. And I'm literally completely in exteroception at the Atlanta airport, realizing, I was the last one on the plane and I made it home. So then I get on the plane and then I realize my heart rate is up. I'm sweating and I'm breathing harder. I didn't notice any of that when I was running. Just glad I made it home. So that's exteroception, an example of the maximum exteroception. So we want to connect these two. All right. So most of the time we're in the middle of both of those going back and forth. And again, we already talked about that. The nervous system always works collaboratively with the other systems of the body, like muscular and skeletal, and it organizes itself over a goal it wants to achieve. So if we're experiencing problems with firing patterns and efficiency of firing in the brain, it generally causes movement to look, well, not right or awkward. So when I train people, work with people, I want to really work on improving the sharpness of the brain and nervous system and just fire faster. Of course, neuroplasticity comes into things in a minute. So let's start with what I call, refer to as bottom-up training. Now, a lot of people are not aware of this, and I didn't know until I met Dr. Emily, who's a podiatrist, who would rather not do surgery on you and not give you the typical insoles, because a lot of times they make things worse. Even though you feel better for a while, you're doing more damage sometimes, right? We know that if, as we go through the decades and we have, let's say, we're wearing shoes and socks all the time during the day when we're around walking and working, and then the skin, many of the nerve endings at the bottom of the skin go to sleep. They're not dead. But this area, our plantar skin, is 80% dense with small nerve sensory receptors and mechanoreceptors. These are directly connected to the cerebellum and other parts of the brain through the nervous systems, peripheral and central. In fact, another fun fact, by age 40, most of us have about 50% of those are not functioning anymore. Not because they can't, but because we don't stimulate them. Well, what happens if you do stimulate these receptors? Well, I can't guarantee anything, but I can close to guarantee that you're going to probably have more, well, you will have more input to the brain because you'll be waking up these nerve endings that have been dormant. So if you do a little bit of barefoot moving, especially if you're doing it outside, I mean, but anywhere is fine as long as you're safe and not stepping on sharp objects or glass, we're going to help to pre-activate the nervous system and the brain before we move. There are a lot of athletes I know. My son's one of them. And others like triathletes and iron women, iron men, who they go barefoot for a few minutes before they get into the race, because we know in sports and athletics, it's growing more common now for athletes to either be barefoot in their shoes and not have socks, or warm up barefoot before they play the game, because this helps. Yep.
Susan brings. You know what? There's an echo on my. Somebody was. Anyways, what if you have problems with your feet, like plantar fasciitis?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a really good question. I'm wondering if this. I think it's plugged in. Yeah. This microphone's plugged in, so. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, so hold that thought for 1 second. It's a really good question. I could talk, and I tend to talk too much sometimes. So let's just keep going. So when we activate the bare skin on the bottom of the feet, activate the hands, we can, I don't have it with me. It's a vibrating ball I like to use. One of the things, we'll talk about that in a minute. You'll see a picture of it. We can activate the palm skin because that's the second most densely populated with small nerve endings and receptors in the body. So, Mark, you got some of those insoles from me, didn't you? The Noboso insoles?
Yes, I did. I've actually, you know what? I think, are you connected on your cell phone? Because I can see two Karls here, and maybe that's the source of the echo.
Oh. It's not me. It might have been a friend who I gave a link to, and I apologize for that. So, I guess if we make sure everyone's muted except for you and me, maybe.
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
Everyone's muted, so I'm not sure where it's coming from.
Oh, you know what? No. Hold on 1 second. I think that I think I might have messed something up here. I'm not so good with technology once in a while. Just hold on 1 second here. Sorry, folks. I don't. How about this?
Yeah, that's
Ah,
yeah.
that was me. The echo you
Okay.
heard was my speaker on my, maybe my, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
hope we're okay now. We should be.
Yeah, yeah, we're good now.
It's jet lag, folks. Sorry.
Yeah, so I actually took a break from music. I was using the Nabosa for like 2 weeks,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I took a break because I don't know if this plantar fasciitis, but probably because I have like hammer toes and stuff. My feet are sort of messed up. They're a disaster. So I have very rough feet, and I was
Okay.
finding it a problem with the Nabosa because with those raised edges, they were causing me discomfort. So I took
Oh,
them off for like 2 weeks, and I've been soaking my feet every day and buffing them. And now
okay.
I can wear the Nobosas without a problem. So, and I just started that yesterday. So hopefully we'll see something. I don't know.
Good. So, what the stuff that I'll share with you, it works most of the time for most people, but nothing works all the time for everyone.
Right.
Um, here's an example. I can't wear the Nabosa insoles anymore. I wish I could, but it's extremely painful on my left leg. And
Right.
that's because I've had so many massive blood clots in that leg. And my nerves have changed, and there's a lot more sensitivity. And even with a pair of socks on, I wear compression socks all the time. I like how they feel. They look weird, but I don't care. And, it helps to return blood back to the heart and avoid clotting, hopefully. So for me, I can't do the insoles, but I did them for years until I had blood clots 2 years ago. But I do walk around barefoot. I can handle that. So, anyways, this whole idea of barefoot is actually a real important thing. Now, it's not going to solve any problems for you, but it might help to increase brain activity. Just know that it will, not probably, it will help improve and increase brain activity. All right. So let's just move forward. This is the ball that I use. I've had mine for years. Um, it vibrates. There's 3 speeds. It's 5.5 inches, so I don't know how many centimeters, but it's kind of like the size of, well, this. 3 speeds of vibration. So if any of you experience tremors, I know that can be very common. One of the things that seems to help most people, even if it's essential tremors, not a neurological issue, is holding a vibrating object for a few minutes. Now, if you have a lot of, big tremoring and involuntary movement, it may take longer than 10 minutes of holding. It might take a half an hour. And it should help to reduce tremors significantly, not permanently. When I showed this ball 3 years ago, I was in Toronto with Dr. Alfonso Fasano, a neurologist at Toronto Western, and we went out to dinner, and I went to a speech he made and all that, and then we were hanging out afterwards, and we got to my car, and I pulled the ball out, turned it on, and he was holding it. He says, "Oh man, I have to get one." So he got one, and what he's noticed is it's helped. Oh, let me go back for a second. There is something that may be relevant here for ataxia. It helps a lot reducing tremors. It can help to wake up the skin. You can put your foot on the ball, barefoot on a low setting or something. That can help to wake up the plantar skin.
I know some of the people in our community have issues with dystonia and certainly restless. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So what we're experiencing now, and there's more research being done on this, but there is research also that does show that although the ball and the vibrating roller, I don't have the vibrating. So I have a roller that looks much like this, just a little bit bigger. I think this is, well, I don't know how big it is, but the other one's a solid one made by the same company. Okay, Hyper Ice is the name of the company. The ball's a Hypersphere. The roller is also a great tool, and those items were originally intended for myofascial release. That means like the fascia, which is the outer layer or the ectoskeleton of every muscle. Sometimes the fascia gets lesions and very tense spots, not so much the muscle deeper in. This can help to vibrate, relax them, elongate them, so we have less muscle tension. Because muscle tension means somehow there's contractions happening, even if they're involuntary, that can lead to pain and other issues.
So you could hold that vibrating ball in your hand and maybe relieve cramping due to dystonia or whatever.
It should help. Again, not everything's for everyone all the time, but almost all the time, it will at least help to reduce involuntary movement or tremors of the hands, let's say, if you're vibrating the hands. Constipation is another big thing pretty much in the world in general, especially Western Hemisphere, but in Parkinson's, a lot of people have constipation because of medicine. I won't show you now. I mean, I could go on, but if you just go to my YouTube channel, you should be able to find something about the ball there and different uses. It can help to relieve constipation. Trust me, it can. I've seen it happen a lot of times. But that's a good thing because we don't want to keep that stuff in us. It's toxic. And then like with restless leg syndrome, or sometimes like cervical dystonia, especially, or abdominal dystonia, involuntary movement of the stomach muscles, involuntary contracting where maybe you're just stuck like this. You could be stuck forward into the side or up into the side. If another person holds the vibrating object here for you, because you don't want to do it yourself, that's less effective. You might take a while. It might take 15, 20, 30 minutes, but there's a good chance you're going to be able to relax, because a lot of times there's pain with dystonia. And with restless legs, if you were to just like lay in bed, let's say this is a leg out in front of me. Let's say this is my quad. That's about how big my quad is. Not big. Anyway, so I'm joking. We just want to roll the ball a little bit for a couple of minutes on like the quads. Maybe rest it in the bed, leg extended. Rest the ball under the various parts of the hamstring and the calves. That has helped very much to reduce restless leg syndrome and kicking at night during sleep. Let's move forward. Power plate's a great tool. I don't have one yet. I'm working on it, but that's where you stand on it. It's full body vibration. Amazing product. Okay. What I want to talk about, though, that I think is equally or maybe even more important than anything is the brain and neural circuitry. This is the circuits of neurons that connect together. Because we know that really pretty much for everybody, as we get older, it becomes more challenging, let's say, to do certain things. I'm even finding this myself with some of the balance issues I have. I mean, they're not big, but it ain't what it used to be, as they say. So I work on it. I work on it a lot. But especially with, let's say, a movement disorder, we know that when a circuit of neurons is compromised, we can make other neural circuits.
Right.
So before we talked about bottom-up training, that's stimulate from the bottom, the feet, barefoot. Okay, so this muy importante con la. I'm sorry. I've been speaking Spanish all week. I'm in Spanish mode. During movement, we want to work on the brain to help create new neural circuitry so that we can reduce the risk of falling and improve movement. And this is done through, this is known as neuroplasticity. Okay, the brain has the ability to reorganize itself as it needs by creating new neural pathways or circuits. And never mind the bottom. I mean, in Parkinson's, the substantia nigra is mainly affected, but it doesn't matter where. I mean, it does to a degree, but the bottom line is when you take something that maybe you've done for a long time, let's say riding a bicycle. Well, have you ever ridden a bicycle, like let's say the first time you got on a bicycle I just kind of skipped something, but I skipped it on purpose to tie it back around and hopefully make more sense. When you're riding, like the first time you get on a bicycle, you're probably not so good. It's a pretty good chance you might have fallen down or almost fell down, or maybe you had training wheels or somebody was holding you. But as you did it more and more and more and more and more, just like playing an instrument, learning a language, which I'm getting much better at Espanol these days. Speaking it for years, but I'm getting better every time I go away, especially where I'm immersed in speaking it. Anytime we want to learn to do anything, including movement or multitasking, dual tasking, riding a bicycle, again, is the classic example of once you have developed the circuitry, learning anything new, then that circuitry will likely remain there for a long, long, long time, maybe forever. I mean, a stroke could change that. A traumatic brain injury could change it. But let's say you don't have any of those and no other brain health issues, then it should be there. So have you ever been like I remember there were years where I didn't ride a bicycle a long time ago. I don't know how many years, 2, 3 years, didn't get on a bike. But when I got back on the bike, I was a little rusty and it took, 3, 4, 5 minutes to get really comfortable, but I didn't have to relearn it. What happened is that brain circuitry had gone to sleep. It just hadn't been activated in years. But as soon as I got on the bike, that whole bicycle riding web of neural connections fired up. It is still there, and boom, I was off and I was riding. So that's an example of you built a set of circuitry for something in particular, and then it stays there. And if you don't use it, it's possible if you don't use it long enough, well, you might have to relearn again. But there's a good chance that you won't need to relearn nearly to the degree as when you first learned. So we want to take advantage of this, though, by challenging the patient during movement, like a focused movement, a focused exercise in movement, to also stack. I call it stacking. That's my own term. I don't know what it's really called. Stacking on some other cognitive task. So you're technically into dual tasking, so that we can develop improved movement skills that transfer from our training sessions. And this is really important because it's cool to do stuff that's cool. But if it doesn't work or it's not relevant, then who cares? And everyone's different in what they need. So you would want to look at, what is my biggest challenge? What are my first top 2 or 3 challenges? What goals do I want to achieve? And then work towards those. But work towards them in a way where the things that you do actually build the circuitry to transfer during your exercise sessions or practice sessions to activities of daily living. And so that's my goal in working with people. When somebody asks about what does a neurorehabilitation specialist do, we really just work on firing up the brain to the maximum degree possible, but using many domains of cognition and memory, because there are many domains of cognition and memory. And memory is really a part of cognition, and vice versa. So we know that Carla Sachs, I think is her name, is the person who truly defined this: neurons that fire together, wire together. And also, for those who are in Toronto, there's a brilliant genius doctor who wrote 2 of my favorite books in the whole world. Dr. Norman Doidge wrote The Brain That Changes Itself.
That's a really good one.
Yeah, it's a great book. And then the other book he wrote that I have, which is like a sequel, The Brain's Way of Healing, which actually has a real good chapter on Parkinson's and another one on, you could just use the Parkinson's chapter for ataxia and get a lot out of that. But the whole book, though, each of these books, it's for all humans because we all have brains and nervous systems. Although sometimes I wonder if I have a brain. But today I feel like I might have somewhat of a brain. And if I wasn't ridiculous, I'd be completely boring. So I say stuff like that because I don't want you to not take what I say seriously, but don't take me seriously. I'm a passionate guy who likes to joke around, have fun, but make a difference for people. And every single day. If it's 5 minutes or 5 hours, I'm researching, trying to learn more because I need to know more so I can do a better job. So frequent and repetitive training, we do things over and over again. This regular training is going to help to solidify these circuits so you can do it better. All right, whatever it is you're trying to do. Now, let's talk about neuroplasticity. This is very, very important. Very important. If there are 3 things I want you to take away from this today, if you only remember 3 things, I'll tell you the first 2 things now. Move often, move every day. To whatever degree you can do. If somebody's unable to walk, email me. I will send you stuff to do seated, and trust me, it'll be a good workout. And you'll I explain everything in the videos because I just want to educate as much as possible. All right, so move every day. Think, learn every single day. You need, for max, I want to tell you what to do, meaning like you need to do what I say. I mean that it is so important to work on your brain every day. Be thinking, be learning, be trying to memorize things. Just work on it. Whether it's 5 minutes or 5 hours or 1 hour or 30 minutes, it doesn't matter. The more is better, but you will experience fatigue, as you'll find out in a moment. So move, use your brain, and understand this. Third thing, how will you maximize neuroplasticity as an adult? I'm assuming that most of us are adults here, and maybe a lot of us are 25 years old or older. I certainly am. Children and infants, toddlers, are highly neuroplastic. Exposure alone can prompt creation of new neural circuitry. A perfect example. Just, do any of you know anyone who's, whatever, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, and they speak like 3 languages fluently with no accent? Are you kidding me? Well, you know what? There's a really good chance that when they were young, they were around those languages all the time. And they didn't have to think about it. The brains just suck in what people say, and they learn how to speak, and bingo, there you go. Well, it's not the same when you get to be my age, 60. Although I feel really good. I have to work harder to learn things like Espanol. But the brain will customizes itself, even as adults, based on the experiences that we have. Whether it's just an experience of, any kind, but especially learning experiences. Okay, so adult brains are less plastic. Now, this is a general term, and a lot of this comes from research by Dr. Andrew Huberman, who's absolutely amazing at Stanford University in the Huberman Lab. And then there's John Rady at Harvard, and there are a lot of others too. So approximately age 25, have you ever known anyone who is like, I'm exaggerating totally, on their 25th birthday, they stop being problematic? It's like, oh, I'm adult now. Well, it took me longer. But I'm just saying that it's like things change. That's because the brain changes. But along with the changes and, becoming more mature and all this kind of stuff, more effort needs to be put in. And this term, self-directed adaptive plasticity, is coined by Dr. Huberman, where we'll use an example in just a second. We will direct the changes in our brain with 2 primary steps. Okay, so as a young person, exposure is all you need to learn stuff. That's why I say, go to college, get your degree in your early 20s, finish school, high school, go to college, because that's the best time for you to absorb the information. Of course, I waited till I was 51, but whatever. I made it through. It just took a lot of time. 2 steps are, step 1, as adults, we must focus. We have to hyper-focus. So when I'm learning Spanish, when I'm learning something, I'm probably taking notes. I have notebooks full of stuff. This whole plane ride just filled up. This entire notebook filled, every single page. I have a stack of empty notebooks waiting to be filled, but I hyper-focus in small chunks because I can't really pay attention for very long unless I really know what I'm talking about. And I learn, I'm a very slow learner. Chunk, 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, take a break. Some people, I think that statistically, the average chunk of time that the most attentive person can actually be super attentive is 90 minutes, and then we need a break. Well, that's not me, but extreme focus, hyperfocus, short bouts of extreme focus and deliberate, keyword here, deliberate, intentional effort, which varies from person to person, is what we need to do. Let's look at a way we can direct our attention now. Remember, going back to neuroplasticity, step 1, as an adult over 25, step 1, self-adapted, directing your attention. So if I say right now, let's say you're sitting, or not. How do your feet feel touching the floor right now? I didn't even think of this until I thought of thinking of it. Well, my feet feel good. I can feel the shoes I have on. I love the Vivo Barefoot shoes. I'm not an endorser. I just like them a lot because they're very minimal, and I like that. Not a thick sole, but that's me. So were you thinking about your feet touching the floor or inside your shoe before I said it? I don't know. Maybe you were, but probably not. But now you are because you directed your attention. What if I say, how does your rear end feeling? How does it feel sitting on the chair? You might not have thought of it till I asked. So this is like proof that we can direct our attention. We're almost done with neuroplasticity, but I just want to tell you that during these short bouts of learning, okay, periods of focus, noradrenaline or adrenaline is released. Now, have you ever been trying to do something or learn something or like do an exercise or learn or think and concentrate and felt agitated, like, I'm really fatigued? Well, this chemical gets created by your brain when you're putting in the directed attention, deliberate effort into the learning event, whether it's movement, cognition, or both together or otherwise. Okay, so you're going to feel the agitation. That's a good thing. It means you're doing something, and it's probably going to benefit you, and you'll probably learn. But there's also acetylcholine released at the places in the brain that are experiencing synapses involved with your particular learning event. Very important. You don't feel that, but these mark those neurons to become stronger together in their wiring. Okay. Well, when is that going to happen? Well, this is step 2. But to get you through step 1 when you're feeling agitated and like, ugh, well, I know the feeling. Just think of it like this. Think of it as I'm rewarding myself by paying attention, focusing. If it's 30 seconds, and I take a break. 60 seconds, take a break. It doesn't matter if it's 90 minutes, 30 seconds. The point is you focus for as long as you can, get really agitated, meaning, this is hard to do. Push yourself, don't kill yourself. But think of it as, this is me getting better. This is me moving forward. This is me making an improvement in my health or whatever, right? That's step 1. Hyperfocus on whatever you're trying to learn or do or improve, movement, memory, whatever. Attach reward to it. These synaptical firing patterns, circuitry, are best formed in a sleep-like state. Sleep is the best. Meditation can be helpful. A nap might help. Partial nap, kind of like one of those dozy things. You're not totally out, but you're not totally in. Sleep. New neural pathways and circuitry are best formed and strengthened during sleep. Okay, so when we look at it, if we can do, even if you're sitting, you can probably do some type of movement and cognitive thing at the same time. If we have time, how much time do we have, Mark? Because I'm almost done with the slideshow. What's our time frame looking like?
Well, our meetings usually go for 2 hours, but I mean, if we could wrap this up in say 15, 20 minutes, with some questions afterwards, that's fine.
That's perfect. Okay. Because, you're sitting here listening to me verbally dispense all of this stuff, and that in itself could be agitating. Maybe the sound of my voice agitates some of you. Nah, I'm just kidding. I have to say these things because, you got to have a few icebreakers here and there, a little bit of kind of like bad dad jokes. All right, so when we train both at the same time, move and think, this can help us to improve movement stability, functionality, and it can help us to reduce fall risk. Okay, let's talk about just, this is only a tip of the iceberg, folks, but let's talk about some different types of cognition. And let's say some things we can do. As a matter of fact, we'll do them in a minute. We'll do it in a seated position just because I don't have much room to stand right here. So cognition has many domains. Well, let's talk about the primary three and then a hybrid number 4 in the next slide. Let's use an example of, let's just say you're like walking sideways, okay? Or you're just punching. Could just be punching. Any pattern you want. Well, you could just do any kind of movement or exercise, but direct recall taps into the brain in a very specific way and has a specific way of activating the cerebellum and other brain areas to fire up brain activity, okay? So let's look at like things you would recall. Could be your name, your names of family members, how to spell your name, how to spell their name, when were they born, how old are they, who's the president, who's used to be the president. I won't go into that one, but in the United States, I'm pretty happy. Anyway, so right now, talk about body parts, nose, ears, eyebrows, eyes, hair, alphabet backwards. What's the capital of New York? Albany. Spell it forward, spell it backwards. What's the capital of Texas? Austin. Spell it forward, spell it backwards. Count by 5s up to 100 or more. Count by 7s up. Count by 6s back. Anything at all, okay? I like cars a lot. I'm a car maniac, so I love to name off cars and tell you like things about the cars that you might not care about, but to some people they're interesting. So if I find like a car buff patient, we're talking cars. So this is direct recall. Spatial awareness has many subcategories, but here's a real basic example. Maybe you're just, you're sucking out some whatever punches on a speed bag or heavy bag, or you're doing jumping jacks, or you're walking. Could just be walking. Could be moving sideways, moving back, any kind of exercise. And I say, okay, Mark, I want you to tell me when you go out the door and get in your car, how do you get to your neurologist's office? And you're okay, I got to pull out and I'm going to go down the street, and then I go to Young Street, and then I turn right on Queen, and then I go to, however, I don't know where but it's just an example because we want to tap into the spatial modality of thinking because that fires up the brain in different ways than naming off, state capitals and recall stuff, okay? So another one that we like to do a lot of, and it would be hard to show you here, I'll Mark, I'm going to send you something. You can post it in the group or whatever. It's another playlist with probably 100 video demonstrations on exercises, cognition, multitask, dual task. So maybe you're just, you're boxing. I got a mitt. This is right, and it has green rock tape on it, just a little square of tape. This is left with yellow rock tape on it. So we got right, left, green, yellow. And I say, Mark, it's time for you to hit me. And you're going to do what I say. I say, right, boom, green. Oh, that's on the right. Boom, yellow, boom, left, boom. Okay, so we can go and try to do that real fast. You're making a decision. There are all kinds of decision making, but this is just one example. Maybe you have colored dots on the floor, and I say, okay, jump to this, jump to blue, jump to red, jump to yellow, jump to orange,
Or maybe you can complicate it when I call out an even number, you do this. When I call out an odd number, you do that.
Exactly. Right? Perfect example. Because, in fact, we were doing one in Mexico this week. So this, boom, boom. If I'm giving the punch, I'm hitting the other person, their hands, gloves, or mitts like this, right? Their jabs, boom, boom, jab. This is a hook. You're hooking around. This is an uppercut. Boom, Boom. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right.
And we can do a lot with that. And what you just said is that made me think of it. Sometimes I forget much of what I know. I just need to look at lists because I forget things. But that's a great example, Mark. So you're assigned, this foot on that color, this foot on that number, or this, or even here, do that, even do this. You have to stop for a split second. You have to decide, wait, what do I do? Here's the assignment. Okay.
It's kind of like Twister.
Exactly. It's a perfect example. It's a perfect example. Yeah. Yeah. And we can progress. Like I have with the right and the left, I'll say, okay, now it's opposite. Whatever I do, you do the opposite. So if I say right, you hit left. If I say left, you hit right. If I say green, you hit yellow, and vice versa. There's another one that's really cool. I've done a lot of teaching in London. And every time I teach in London, not Ontario, although I love London, Ontario. Met people on the plane from there yesterday. London, England. I always teach at my friend Dan Edwards' parkour gym. Well, if you're not familiar with parkour, look it up. It's really cool. And you can make your own little obstacles maybe at home. They don't have to be simple. I mean, they don't have to be complicated. They can be super simple. But the job is when you have an obstacle, you have to use spatial cognition and decision making to figure out how am I going to get to the other side of the obstacle? Is it going to be over it, around it, under it, or through it? All right, so I think the last thing I want to talk about before I leave the slideshow is the fourth thing I want you to take away from this today. So the first two are keep moving. Keep moving and keep thinking, keep learning. So use your body, use your brain. Understand neuroplasticity involves paying attention, focusing. Take a break. Focus, break. Doesn't mean tomorrow you're going to be measurably better at doing anything, but if you do it every day and you take advantage of number 2, so step 1, hyperfocus, step 2, sleep, well, that's neuroplasticity as we get older, over the age of 25. So you got use your brain, use your body, pay attention, sleep, focus and sleep. That's one step. That's neuroplasticity. The last one is the best known method of slowing pretty much. I can't say for sure if it's everything, but it might be, but it's at least most brain health issues through exercise. The number one way of slowing disease progression is generally, for most people, cardio. What kind of cardio? Just elevate the heart rate. You could just be sitting down and throw punches, as hard as you can for 30 seconds. Take a break. Maybe 30-second break. Then do it again. I mean, we can do cardio in a seated position. So for people who are not able to walk, well, I have patients who cannot walk, so we do cardio in their seated position. Why is it so important? Besides getting blood and oxygen to the brain, there's this really cool hormone or growth hormone and protein that is developed, and it's talked about a lot in the Norman Doidge books and in the John Rady books from Harvard. It's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So this slide has a typo in it, but just know that when you look at the expression of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, on the left in the blue represents inactive state. Somebody who's really not doing anything that much movement-wise. It doesn't mean you're going to be depressed. It doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean you're going to be depressed. However, it's not going to help you to increase your neuron activity in the brain and to help create, maintain better cellular structure in any areas of that include brain cells that are starting to, let's say, lose their structure or their health, or they're dying. Okay, so in the inactive state on the left, we usually experience more stress. We have decreased neural activity. It could lead to atrophy. It's very possible. Probably will if you don't move enough. Yet on the other side, an active state for most people, again, nothing's every time for everybody, and we're all uniquely different, but generally speaking, movement is going to, well, it will, this is all the time, it will create new neuronal activity, and it will probably act almost like an antidepressant. All right, so that you have this growth hormone is created during best created. Let me clarify this. You can get it a lot of ways, BDNF, but the best way to create is through elevating the heart rate. It doesn't have to be super intense. Just get it above resting, and do it for 20 to 30 minutes. 30 is definitely better than 20. If you can't do that, then that's fine. But you start at whatever you can do and work your way up. Maybe you're doing 5-minute bouts, 3-minute bouts of something. But over time, you end up with a concentrated effort that maybe is at least 20 minutes, like in an hour. Maybe in 20 minutes in an hour, you can get your heart rate up and take advantage of the creation of brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
And sorry, I just wanted to bring up one thing, Karl. So
Sure.
let's say we want people to do a minimum of 30 minutes a day, but then they might say, I can't do 30 minutes in a row. So could they maybe do 6 sessions of 5 minutes?
Absolutely.
In a day?
Which I was trying to say, and you articulated it so much better than I did. Absolutely, yes. 100%.
So like maybe you could do 5 minutes, then take a 2-hour break, do another 5 minutes, whatever, right?
You can. However, and that's not bad. That is doing no harm at all. And sometimes that's the only thing somebody can do. And there's nothing wrong with it. But if possible, it's much better and much more effective to do them closer together.
Right.
Like maybe not take more than a 2 or 3 minute break.
Well, that's the goal is you shorten the rest time over time, right? As people get more experience and whatever.
It articulated perfectly. I think you're hired. Sorry. No, really, I couldn't have said it better because I tend to talk too many words. I'm trying to be more succinct in what I say, but that's exactly, you start where you're at and do what you can with the goal of achieving a certain goal. Okay, so let's talk about why is this so important? Well, BDNF is extremely important. It's in all the research. Just go to pubmed.com. Look up some of the stuff on it and how cardio, elevated heart rate, is so helpful, right? Because it helps to keep chemicals in the system for longer, so there's a better uptake of those chemicals. So if you have, that includes medications, by the way. So if you're taking, let's say you're taking levodopa, Sinemet, carbidopa, or whatever, then the assimilation, it'll be a more, let's say, more effective assimilation of the medications. So it'll get into the body faster because you're doing exercise. And it will stay, it should have a longer lasting effect. Maybe it's 15 minutes. Maybe it's an hour or two. I know some people who used to have on periods, if you think of on versus off, like in Parkinson's, you take levodopa, Sinemet, dopamine replacement. And once that medication kicks in, you're on because you're moving better usually and thinking more clearly. Well, I know people who are getting like an extra 2 hours out of one dose because they're like walking briskly for 30 minutes a day.
Jimmy Choi is a good example of that. It's his name. The guy who did the American Ninja Challenge, Jimmy Choi or Jimmy Tsai. Sorry.
What's the name again?
Jimmy. He did the American Ninja Warrior. He's big in the Parkinson's community. I'm blanking last name.
I don't know him, but yeah, what a great example, right? For all of humanity.
Or Alison Tupperwine, she's another one.
Yeah, there's some really just, this week again, of course, when I travel, I meet great people, but I meet people who really shift my perspective on life. I don't generally think I have anything bad going on. I'm a very positive person, but I have my moments. And, You know, it's always a paradigm shift when I see somebody who's really struggling and they're fighting. And I'm so lucky for what I do have. My health, you know, I almost died a couple years ago in Singapore from blood clots, but I'm back. I'm okay. I'm lucky. And so, like you, Mark, and so many other people I know are inspirations, not just to me, but and to people who experience what you're experiencing, but to humanity in general. If humanity would just pay attention sometimes and realize how good a lot of people have it, even when they don't think they have it good. There's always somebody worse off than you or me. But anyways, I'm just going off here. But if we think about also this growth hormone, growth protein, that it helps to preserve cellular structure of brain cells, preserve connective patterns and circuitry, and promote, let's say, longer maintenance of the cells and circuitry so that diseases don't progress as quickly. And I just have to say one more time, nothing's the same for everyone. Nothing works for everybody all the time. And some people just have had a really, really tough time, and a disease progresses very quickly, even if they fight back. But, you know, who knows what it'd be like if they didn't? I mean, you can't know the counterfactual unless you could go back and relive those years. None of us can do that. So, BDNF. So, we got use the body, work, move every day. Think and learn every day. Understand neuroplasticity. Focus, 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 sleep. Right? That's neuroplastic. Concentrate, right? And then this last one is we said move every day, but why do we move? Well, a lot of reasons. But we're really looking at elevating the heart rate for BDNF. We want this. And all the books, they all say the same thing. It's really, really a game changer. There are other chemicals created too, by the way, that are really helpful. But this one's the real game changer. You can get it other ways, like just doing things you like to do. I like drinking coffee. I'm not going to get much from it. BDNF from it, but I like it. I probably get a little from it. When I do things I like to do, when I'm with people I like to be with, which is pretty much anybody. Well, not anybody, but I mean, when we do things we like to do, be with people we want, that's also creating this BDNF. So exercise, though, heart rate, elevated heart rate, that's the best.
Probably the key differentiator would be those other things you mentioned. You're doing them kind of by accident, kind of passively, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas
yeah, and you know,
this thing is self-directed. You're going out and chasing a goal or whatever.
Yeah. I think I'm going to have to take lessons from you on how to say more in less words, because you're really good, Mark. I appreciate that so much. That is just so well stated.
You know, there's one statement that I stick with, as like I coach, well, when my gym was open, I coached boxing and whatever. I don't know if I made this up or I stole it from a book, but if I did, I apologize to the universe, right? But you're welcome to use it, right? When someone is struggling, you know, they don't think they can do a thing, or they just feel incapable. What's the point? We have this disease and no one thinks there's a cure for it. What's the point, right? Yeah. 4 simple words. Every master starts as a disaster.
There you go. I love that. That's great. And I never heard of that, so I think you made it up.
The key is just to start.
Yeah. I mean, you know, if that's the attitude somebody has and they're going to just move forward no matter what, they're not like me. I don't have to know all this sciencey stuff to make, I'm sorry. They may not have to know all these details because they're just going to do it. I'm not like that. I actually don't like to exercise very much. At least I don't think I do. I never actually have the urge to get up and go do anything. But I don't want to be 300 pounds again. That means I will be back to where I was years ago, 12 years ago, and I can never go there again. I have a beautiful family and friends. I have a mission to help people. I need to be healthy to do it. I also want to be an example, at least a halfway decent example. But here's the thing. You hit on something really, really highly relevant and important. People don't always believe they're able to do anything. You know what? I'm going to stop sharing because I don't need to share anymore. People do not always believe they're capable of whatever it is they'd like to do. But I can tell you firsthand experience all over the world, including this week in Mexico. I saw people. I just got distracted. Yes, I will share papers on cognition, but let me tell you where some of that is in just a moment. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's cool. But when somebody accomplishes something that maybe we take for granted, like here's an example. This week, again, we had a lady in her early 80s who has not been able to. First challenge of the day for her is to roll over in bed. Wakes up, can't roll over. She can roll over now because we taught her how. It seems like that shouldn't be an issue, right? Now, not everyone may be able to roll over with how we teach, but there are ways to leverage the body to propel itself to go.
Right.
And so she came back the next day. Sunday was the first day. She came back in on Monday with and her daughter's with her, and they're beaming. They also had a bottle of mezcal for me. Very dangerous for me to drink that. So anyways, as a gift of appreciation, but, they say, oh, you gave her life back. I didn't give her life back. I just showed her stuff that somebody else showed to me, and then she did the work, and now she's rolling over. But here's the real change. The rolling over is one thing. The belief that came with it in herself, the hope, the empowerment, put her in an unstoppable state of mind, and she kicked butt every day. She came back 4 days in a row. A few other people were there 4 days in a row too, even though it was different people every day, because they kept learning things. I'm a giver, a sharer of information. And that is power. Because when you go from feeling, let's say, there are people who feel defeated and hopeless. They regain or improve one little skill, which actually is a big skill if you can't do it. And then you're able to do it. Who knows? So we start to see big changes, and the other thing too is if you don't feel like exercising, I can relate to it. But I just wanted to also say, once you get started, you'll probably get the energy to keep going for a little while, So I just go. I'm going to get on my bike in a little while, or no, I'm going to walk today. That's right. It's a couple miles up to the repair shop and get the vehicle, and I'll drive it back, of course. But I just want to walk really fast because 2 miles on a bicycle is nothing for me. So 2 miles walking, it's not that it's going to be a huge effort, but if I walk super fast, I can't run. My hips hurt, but I can walk fast, get a little bit of cardio in, like a half an hour, right? So I don't feel like walking right now, but I will because I need my vehicle. But I also know that once I get into it, 5 minutes in, 2 minutes in, I'm like, oh man, this is great because you're going to feel better after you move.
We should
I want to tell you just.
Sorry, I'll let you do this one point, but we should probably take questions here. And
perfect.
Yeah,
that's perfect timing because I'm pretty much done with the high points I want to say. So I hope, is it okay if I mention this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm always self-conscious about this, but I'm not so much. Well, of all the things I've ever had that I can offer to somebody, the thing that I would offer is this focuses on Parkinson's. It's a book I wrote. It came out last June. It's a manual. It's a study guide. Now, while it talks about Parkinson's mostly in the first of 4 parts, parts 2, 3, and 4, they are for all humans. Because this goes deep, deep, deep into all the stuff we just talked about, but way deeper and way more. And just in case there's anyone who would want it in Espanol, it's available in Spanish too. So Um, it's available on Amazon, but it costs more there. $35 American. There's a website that comes with it that's free forever, and it's growing. Actually, right now we're adding a lot of new stuff. It's organized by chapter, super easy. But if you go to parkinsonsregenerationtraining.com, I can type that in, parkinsonsregenerationtraining.com. There's a lot of research for the person, maybe Sandra.
Yeah, she's in.
Sandra.
Actually, your name is German, right? Sandra is in Germany.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So the big bibliography in this book is many, many pages. And a lot of that has to do with, have the answers to your questions. Of course, actually, my book does too. So the thing about why I want you to buy my book is not because I'll get money, because I won't. You'll get information. The money all goes to a foundation I started, nonprofit, and this is, we send money to people, we being me. I mean, I'm the one who runs it. But we help people who are really lacking. You know, we send $100 today to one person and $100 to another, because they don't have medications where they are, and they have no money. They have nothing. They're so economically, you know, in a very down state. We have a system for how my son and my wife and I pick the people, choose them, and how we work the system. But we donate to associations and people all the time, every month around the world. That's where the money goes from the book, just so you know. And I'll type it in the chat box here. But are there any questions at all? I've been talking.
I just had I think 2 questions. So before we let everyone unmute themselves, so question 1. You mentioned in the chart where it had movement, music. I forget where the other 2 on the left were, but I see movement and music, and then barefoot on the bottom right. So I'm talking about that.
Movement,
Music
with somebody, like play, or
play, and then what's
outdoors.
Outdoors, right?
And barefoot if it's safe and you're not going to cut your feet or anything. And the music, again, the music could be music, or it could just be the sound of nature.
So, I noticed you mentioned movement, and a lot of us, myself included, you know, humans in general, especially in the West, we're caught up with this idea of exercise, and we need to go to the gym for whatever amount of time, and we need to lift weights, we need to do all this exercise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas there are other animals who are ridiculously strong, like gorillas or lions or whatever. They never go to the gym, right?
That's true.
So what's why did you use the term movement instead of exercise? Like, can we only move? Can we only do this focused movement and play and skip the exercise bit? Like skip the reps and the sets and whatever?
I love that question. I don't like gyms, and I don't belong to one. I've worked in 2 different gyms. Not anymore, though. You need to do what you like to do. Otherwise, you probably won't do it. So for some people, that's, for my daughter and her husband, that's CrossFit. And they love it. I don't like it, but it doesn't mean it's wrong or bad. They love it. Good, because they'll do that. They'll do a lot of other stuff too, but doing what you like to, I won't go to it. I've joined gyms in my life thinking, okay, now that I joined and I'm paying money every month, I'll go. Well, I might have gone like 10 times, 5 times, and then I go once a month instead of 3 times a week. And I'm like, you know what? Why did I just do this like for the 10th time in my life, join a gym? So I haven't been a gym member in about 7 years, because I don't like that most gym activities. My form, but if you do, then you should go. Absolutely. Please hear me. If you like stuff in gyms, whatever it is, go, because it's better to do that than not doing anything.
Or you could substitute, like instead of lifting weights, you could lift your granddaughter or something, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, walking through the airports yesterday, I never do check-in bags. I never, ever, ever check bags. I carry stuff, but I always pack real light. So I had a book bag. I knew I'd come back with more, and I did. I had a big second grocery bag, the one of those,
Yeah.
not paper, plastic. It was like you buy them for a couple of dollars and they're reusable. I had one of those filled with stuff. But honestly, I swear to God, my biceps hurt today because I kept switching arms because I'm like, and trying to show my passport here, and I got this thing here and something on my back. I'd rather be doing what I consider functional movement. I like to
Right.
chop wood. I like chainsaws. I carry wood around the yard. If I'm going to do an actual like exercise that's not a functional, like mow the lawn,
Right.
yard work, garden work, digging holes, chopping wood, stacking wood, moving rocks around the yard. Well, if I'm going to do any kind of movement at all, like that's like considered maybe to some exercise, it's going to be body weight.
Right.
Yeah. On the floor, maybe a TRX strap I hang from my tree outside or whatever, but suspension training. But even that, I'd rather just be moving and doing like functional things. It's just
Right.
full body movements. But do what you like. That's the most important thing. Move every day. Exercise is not the right word for everyone.
Right.
I think movement is more important than exercise.
And one more question before I open it up to everyone else. Um, so you mentioned that when you went down to Mexico, you saw a lady with ataxia, right?
Yeah, yeah.
On your recent trip. So I know most of the people who deal with have Parkinson's. How was her case different? Like, do you know what her diagnosis was? How was her case different than other people you've met? And how were her symptoms the same?
Um, see, I don't know the actual diagnosis. It might have been cerebral ataxia, but I think that's a thing.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Because there are several types of Parkinsonisms, multiple sclerosis. There are 4 different kinds of multiple sclerosis. Ataxia has various forms. She just had trouble coordinating movement, but and a little bit of trouble with speech, but not too much. And we, kind of generally treat all of the intervention strategy. I use the same things for everybody, but in
Right.
ways that are appropriate for each individual. I have from very low to very high function Parkinson's and MS patients I work with. We really just want to wake up the nervous system of the brain and have them be, people be thinking a lot, because nothing defines us except ourselves. Ataxia, Parkinson's, cancer, they're not who we are. We live with these things if we have these things. And all of us have nervous systems and brains. So if we can just really treat the body in a holistic manner by, I see another question from Sandra, and I'll answer yes. You can get it online, ebook. Sandra, 1 second on that. Then, does that make sense? You have to, because I have people with, you get 5 people with Parkinson's, and they're completely differently affected. Right. They may have a couple of things in common, but their ability to move and this and that.
Yeah, it's the same with everything. Like when I'm maybe teaching boxing in the gym, you have a standard approach for everyone. Then maybe say, okay, maybe he or she needs a bit more work on this one technique or whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is like so let me answer a couple questions before if it's okay.
Actually, let me ask everyone to go ahead and raise their hand using the raise hand button. I will go ahead and ask people to unmute themselves if they
Sure.
want to ask a question, and they can go ahead.
Great. So Shannon and everyone, if you're interested in my book in an ebook format or audiobook format, the audio sounds really good. I didn't read it. That's why it sounds good. And it's available on Amazon. So if you just put in the title, Parkinson's Regeneration Training, um, it's available in paperback, Kindle, which is a little, less money, and audiobook, which is, I actually don't know how much it is because I don't set the price. Amazon does. And I'm an audio guy. Like, I learn better if I hear things or if I see things, like visually, like a video, I'll learn. But if I listen and watch, I'll learn. If I read, I have to work hard. But just go to Amazon and check it out. The paperback's not available in every country, though. I don't know if somebody here is in Germany, maybe. I can get it to you. I can find out if you need paperback anywhere, but it's not available. It just would cost a little for shipping. But ebooks should be pretty much everywhere, I think. And Shannon, yes, micrographia, that affects so many people. It's where you might be starting, you're
Right.
signing your name, and by the time you get to the end of your signature, you go from maybe bigger, well, let's say bigger movements and letters to like, oh yeah, okay, that sounds about right, Lori. 43 on Amazon, Canadian dollar. Yeah, because it's 35 US dollars. I know it costs more than a lot of books, and I feel bad about it, except that the money goes to nonprofit and we donate everything, all proceeds. But I can tell you that the website that comes with it will always be growing, so you always get more information there too. Stuff that's not in the book that I can't put into words because you need to see it.
And you can certainly watch the YouTube channel, which I found very informative. You have a
Um,
lot of great speakers.
yeah, I can't remember. So also, I just want to say thank you, Melissa, for thanking me. I'm just a guy who talks a lot, but hopefully with information that helps. If you just search for me on, I'll tell you where it is. So yeah, any questions at all? I'm here for you. Hopefully, I know the answer, sort of. If you look on Amazon and you look for the Parkinson's Regeneration Training playlist, look for me, Karl Sterling with a K. And I'm sorry, I should have a direct thing that goes there, and I'm not sure that I actually do because I don't always remember everything very well. And I think it's a public playlist. If it's not, I'll make it public after we're done. I can't see if there's any hands raised, but I'm certainly happy to answer questions.
So anybody that has any questions, just you can unmute yourself or raise your hand in the chat, and we'll go ahead and get to you. But Kathy was asking, what's the name of the nonprofit?
Yes, I'm going to type that in the chat box right now. It's called the Parkinson's Global Project Incorporated. It's a 501c3, which in the United States, I don't know if it's the same in Canada or other countries.
No, we have a different system in Canada, but yeah, it's obviously we're a nonprofit, and it's just a little bit different in Canada. But we don't use that 501c3 thing.
Okay, yeah, so this is nonprofit. Like when people pay on my website for a book. Well, the thing is like let me show you something else too, real quick, because I'm not selling copies. So, I mean, if you want to buy one, you can make a donation, and I'll just send it to you. But if anyone buys the book through my Parkinson's Regeneration Training.com website, you'll get a free copy of my CD. And there's the Parkinson's Global Project. I took my musician talent, if you will, and although I had blisters after the recording session, we did a CD 2 years ago, and it came out last year. All proceeds from this go to the foundation too. But the history behind this is I've been helping quite a few musicians, especially in Los Angeles, who live with movement disorders, mostly Parkinson's. And I'll write my email address in here real quick. And so the gentleman who plays guitar on this, Jeff Richmond, who, if you've listened to music ever in your whole life, I know that sounds ridiculous. He's been around, and Oops, hold on. I think somehow
On.
I screwed this up. Oh, I want to type in the chat box two things, and I think I messed it up. Um, let's
You
see.
have to make sure it's going to everyone.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's what I did wrong. Um, there it is. And then the email address is Carl at neuromotortraining.com. Let's see if that's right. Yeah. Um, so, I mean, that's a long story, but bottom line is it's music chosen by people with Parkinson's with a positive message for all people. And so uh, if you buy on Parkinson'sRegenerationTraining.com, I think the book is a little less expensive than Amazon, but you get a free CD with it. The only difference is if you're out of the country wanting a paperback because maybe you can't get it in your area, although Canada can. We've sold a lot of copies in Canada. Then the shipping is like $20 US from here to anywhere in Canada, which I wish it wasn't, but it is. But so it would cost probably like $48 or something. But anyways, yeah, good question. So, Jacqueline, this is my stinky shoe. They actually sent me this last year. They sent me two pairs to try out because they know that you can see it's kind of wearing out. I had already been in rather minimal shoes. It took me about a year to go from a traditional 12 to 14 millimeter heel height because you don't want to drop down to minimal if you have tight calves and a tight Achilles because you don't want to like drop the heel down and then experience like a tear. That would hurt terribly. I've never experienced it, but I know it's not good. So I went through the Nike process. I went through the Nike, like, I don't even know, like an 8 millimeter. Then I went to the 543 and then the 2. And then when I got down to 2, I just went to Vivo Barefoot because this is a 0 millimeter drop. It's like same all the way. This could be another hour of talking, but I'll spare you to just say that if you're able to use a minimal sole, the benefits are you have to do what's right for you because like I used to be really heavy, right? So a minimal sole on the minimal, you know what I mean, on the bottom of the shoe, that would have been too much for my body to handle impact force wise because I weighed too much, so I needed more cushioning. But I still weigh a lot. I mean, for me, I should be less, but I'm 220 pounds and like 100 kilos exactly, I think. And does that sound right? Yeah, it is. And so, I can handle it now, though. I adjusted. I did a process of gradually dropping, and I love these things. They're expensive, but I just ordered another pair, and for me, they're worth it. They'll last at least a year, and I wear my shoes hard.
One thing I wanted to point out, I actually just got this idea, and I can't believe I didn't realize it before, because I grew up in the martial arts and whatever.
Cool.
A very common piece of footwear is these shoes called Feiyu or Feiwei, which are made in Shanghai. They actually are sold in the US. They cost like 25 to 30 bucks a US, which is like nothing for a pair. And they're totally flat. And their shoes
Cool.
they're really popular in Europe among martial artists and people who do parkour and skateboarding and stuff like that.
That is cool. What's the name of that again?
Feiyu.
Oh, I've heard of them, but I've never
Yeah.
seen any. Yeah, I had to check those out. Yeah. Maria, were you speaking of what Mark just said? The name of the shoes? I mean, Vivo Barefoot's what I use exclusively now.
Right.
But yeah.
But I find that may be a good choice because some of these barefoot shoes can get kind of expensive.
Oh my
right?
gosh. Yes.
Yeah.
If
And
you ever, is this going to go up on Facebook? Because I don't know if I can say it if it does.
yeah,
I don't want anyone to see
I'm,
this.
I'm
I'll tell you what. There's another barefoot type of shoe that I get, I think 50% discount. And I'll send you the information, Mark, and then you can include that in the email. But I don't want the whole. I'm allowed to say it to smaller groups, but not like all the people in the world,
sure.
or the company will like have a conniption. But I'll send the info. Yeah, and I think that it's 50% off, maybe 40 on some things and 50 on most things, and then it brings it, from $140 down to 70. But it's still kind of a lot. But at least it's half off.
Um, so there were two questions, one from Shen and then another one from your friend who's using your name. I don't know what her name is. But Shannon, maybe you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay. Yeah. So I wonder, is micrographia like bike riding? The neurons are just sleeping?
I'm not sure that I can answer other than to say this. It's like its own part of a coordination issue, control. Let's say difficulty controlling your movement. For example, walking. If walking is a challenge or presents challenges that maybe it didn't used to challenge you in or anyone else, that is a type of movement. This writing, this is a type of movement. So just the fine motor control is many times, larger movements can be challenged, but fine motor control can affect so many. I mean, if you think of a fork, and even if there's no tremor involved, even if there's no tremor, sometimes because of various things in the arm and the neuromuscular
Right.
system, coordination might be hard to get into the mouth. Well, that's kind of like micrographia, sort of, but it all has to do with lack of control in movement. And so the one thing that I've had people do is practice on a piece of paper, big, O, B, A, big letters. Just practice. I have horrible handwriting. Well, I did, and I still sort of do, but it's a friend of mine who's a handwriting person. She's really kind of teaches that a little bit to people who are coming out of like rehab from a stroke, and that's one of the things she does, just big letters, so that it's like when you exaggerate movements. When we do arm swing in our classes, and we're having we have reciprocal arm swing. My left foot goes, my left leg steps forward, left arm should come forward, hinging at the shoulder joint, and little elbow flexion too. But we had people doing this. I'll probably post a video later tonight on Facebook. You'll see. So this exaggerated movement actually helps, so that they went to more of a normal arm swing instead of no arm swing. So bigger. There's a Move Big program too that's Parkinson's related worldwide. Move Big would probably have you write real big.
There's one thing we do it's a concept in martial arts which applies here, and we also do in boxing. When you're a beginning boxer, right? Your hook usually looks like this. It's a big, wide arcing thing, right? But as you learn to do it, it becomes very short and efficient, more like Mike Tyson or something, right?
Right.
Same sort of concept. It's the economy of motion, right? Or economy of movement.
Yeah. Yes. So it's interesting because as a drummer I've interviewed a lot of drummers.
Yeah.
I actually am starting a thing, a drummer for movement disorders program. I just haven't figured out exactly how I'm going to get it outside of a live classroom or a live situation, because the sound delay on Zoom and this and that can cause problems. But drumming. There's an article if you want. I can email you, and it talks about the neuroscience of drumming and why drummers' brains are usually different than a lot of other people's brains. It doesn't mean I'm any smarter, but it does mean that I have different kind of connections going on with circuitry because of all the polyrhythmic layering and cross-body patterns. Cross-body patterns are so important.
Right.
Tai Chi, martial arts. Anytime you can cross the midline of the body. Sorry, I don't know if you could hear me.
And there's one trainer whose book I just read who explained it well, said that whenever you're moving your left arm, your right brain is firing, right? And whenever you're moving your right arm, your left brain is firing. So in order to get those parts of the brain working, you have to do the crossbody thing.
Absolutely. And so you have two hemispheres in the brain. So anytime you're doing, a crossbody pattern, of any type of thing, right? Doing my drum fills and all that. Well, this creates extra firing patterns between hemispheres. So they're communicating with each other. And the more you do of that, the better off you are. I also want to show you three things real quick. If anyone out there,
I should let everyone know who is here. I'm gonna let this go to a bit later, like for our support meeting, because we're going kind of long here. So yeah,
yes,
that's totally fine. We can keep going for another 10 minutes or so. But I just want to let everyone know I'll stick around till like 5:30. It's fine.
Okay. Actually, I need to leave at 5 because if I don't get my vehicle by 5:30, I'm gonna have a problem tomorrow.
Yeah. So you're gonna have to run everywhere or walk.
Yeah. Well, actually, that'd be good for me. But so let me show you three things. If you're a science geek like me and you really like to geek out and be a nerd and learn stuff, I'm a total nerd and a geek. This book is my favorite book about how music benefits the brain. It's not your typical music therapy book. Where I study music therapy in college, this is a textbook. I've had it for 1 year and I've only read about half of it because this is a study guide. And this talks a lot about Parkinson's, movement disorder. I believe it talks about ataxia in here too. But what it really does is goes into describing, and there are a lot of authors, and this is just like a huge. Well, I won't take the time.
I'm going to include all the stuff you're mentioning in.
Great.
We do a follow-up email after all our meetings.
Oh,
so
good.
I'm going to. I'll include all this stuff.
Okay, so the other thing I want to go back to and talk about is when you do stuff you like to do. A lot of times, especially if you're being creative, your symptoms may diminish quite a bit. Ian Pryor is a friend of mine in Rochester, England. And when I was in Rochester, which is like an hour and a half east of London, he has some form of ataxia, a lot of involuntary movement. However, he spins pottery, and he made me this beautiful vase. I wish I could drink out of it, but because of what it's made of, it would be bad for my health. But I love this thing so much. This is a beautiful piece of art and creation, and it came from his heart. And what is better than that, right? For any of us, there's something that's from the heart that you really mean for somebody.
And it brings up a good point that she likes wearing shoes and she doesn't like being in bare feet, right? But I was thinking, could we maybe address it this way? So say you identified the 5 things, which is play, movement, outside, music, and barefoot, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're doing all of the things and say at maybe 30% capacity, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if we just cut out barefoot and we really overemphasize the other 4? Is that not good enough?
Could you just the last part of that? Could you say that one more time? I'm really sorry.
If we say cut out the barefoot, but really put all our energy into the other 4, Is that okay? Like,
Oh yeah, totally.
what, going barefoot isn't mandatory, right?
No. It's not mandatory. Although I will say this: if you want to try it, I recommend do it first thing in the morning, because there will be more than likely a carryover effect that lasts you throughout the at least part of the day. I've seen this happen so many times. So, but any one of those is better than none. Two is better than five. Three's better, or
Right.
three's better than two. Any combination or
And
any individual of
one
those things
other
is good.
thing I wanted to point out is that, no, like maybe when we're saying barefoot, some people are getting the idea that, okay, you have to go for a walk or run a marathon barefoot. Simply, if you stand outside barefoot, that's good enough, right?
Oh yeah. I would not recommend running a marathon barefoot
Yeah,
unless you're a
unless you're
unique
like,
creature.
yeah, or you're in Africa or something.
Who? Yeah, I mean, there's relevance to that too, because
Right.
the lifestyle. No, I would not go barefoot, and I wouldn't even run bare. I know one friend of mine who runs barefoot in the city of Syracuse, but I've never told him I think he's nuts. But sometimes I wonder if he's okay. But he is okay. He's great. But he can do it. He's been doing it for years. But this here, the whole thing is that when he was making this, before he went into the shop and got the pottery thing spinning and using his hands and doing this and that, his symptoms were all over the place with all kinds of involuntary movement. Once he got into this, just not even 5 minutes into it, he had no involuntary movement. This was given to me this week by my friend Adriana Silvana Mendoza. She made me a mandala. She has a huge amount of dystonia-like involuntary movement, especially, and she had DBS surgery too, deep brain stimulation, and even with that at full force and medications, there are times where she's just going all over the place. But when she does this, she creates, the brain fires up. It creates BDNF. It has other factors, other chemicals that are created. They bring all of her, well, almost all, and sometimes all, involuntary movements to a stop. And here she is. She made this thing, and like this is supposed to be a neuron and a little synaptic firing pattern here. I'm going to find a picture frame and put this up this weekend. But I wanted to show you that because that's really good for, it's good for us to do things we like to do. And Lori, I want to say that in the video link you posted here on YouTube, that's a presentation I did for Dr. Emily Splickle, who I mentioned she created the Demoso insoles. That's her thing, who I taught for years. And Shannon, thank you. Aha, yeah, my car. Yeah, I have to go in about 6 minutes. Got to get me automobile. But that video is a presentation that I did a couple years ago. It has a lot of this stuff in it. So just wanted to answer that question. Any other questions?
Yeah, any other questions?
I really appreciate all the work that you do, Mark, because you have a great community here. You've brought together, and
we're almost hit 900 people in our Facebook group.
Man, bravo.
It's I wanted to, before we sign off here, I wanted to point out one thing that you brought up earlier. So sometimes not, I personally believe this, whatever I've created here and you being here and whatever, is a manifestation of this idea of letting go of what you think you know, right?
Oh man, that's really good.
When you first trained that Parkinson's person, and you were so nervous because you thought you didn't know anything, but now going ahead, I don't know how many years from that, you're like regarded as an expert in the field. Meanwhile, the people in the establishment who quote unquote knew what they were doing are like nowhere to be found because
And sometimes they don't know that much, which might have
Right.
been what you meant.
Or you take a band like the Beatles, which is arguably one of the greatest bands of all time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And 3 out of 4 of them never played music before, right? When they started.
It's like magic.
Yeah.
Well, you know, a couple things. First of all, Sandra, the answer to your question is yes about acupressure mat. 100% yes. And the other thing too is I joke around about this, but I'm actually really serious. I really don't feel like I know that much.
Right.
I know I do know a lot, but you know that there's so much more to know.
Right.
And I'm going to seek out all I can know, and I'll know more, and I'll never know everything. But I mean, and that's the things that we think we believe to be true, and then we find out they're not always true, or maybe they're never true. And I would very, very, very much say, be open to the fact that you could be wrong. Because I can tell you, I've been wrong a lot, like way more than I. Not that I wanted to be right. It's like not like my ego. It's like, no, I need to be right because I know everything. No, I might actually truly believe something is the way I believe it is, until I find out it's either not that way all the time, or maybe it's never that way, or it's only. Be open, because you'll do a lot better that way. You know. I've changed my stance on a few opinions over the years, and that's why a couple people who don't like me very much. Maybe a few. No, I'm respectful to them. I appreciate where they're coming from, and I completely don't agree, because somebody else pointed out that what I thought they used to be the end-all, be-all, that's it for whatever they're talking about. I just found out that's not it.
Yeah.
I have great examples of this, just that would take way too long to tell, but be
Right.
open. Be open.
Yeah. Anyways, on that note, we should probably sign off and let you go get your car. And
Yeah.
it was great hearing from you, and thanks for taking the time.
Well, thank you. So, tonight, I promise, I will not forget, I will include links to many things. Put whatever you want in the email, and if you don't mind, I'd love to have a copy of the email too,
Sure.
because I want to thank you for having me. I'm highly honored to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to share. Hopefully we can do it again down the road, but not too soon, because I have to learn a lot more first.
Right.
So I don't repeat myself, because I'm sure I'll tell you something in 6 months that I might not agree with what I said today, although I think that I probably won't change, but you never know. And Mark, I appreciate you inviting me. I appreciate all that you do. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Sandra. You've been really active here. Shannon, everybody, Lori, Henry, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. Mark,
Okay.
God bless you, my friend, and everybody, and keep up the great work, because communities, people need people. We need each other. You're doing great stuff. Keep doing it. And if you ever have a question, I don't take money for advice. You just call me up, email me. I'm here. It might take me a day to respond sometimes, but I will respond, and I'm always here to help. Don't hesitate, okay?
Great. Thanks, Karl. Have a good one.
Thank you.